episode 9. Let's get started. I can't believe we made it to episode 9. The further we get in this web series, the more fun it becomes, the more stories there are to tell, and so on and so forth. This episode in particular is going to take us to Iceland. So we're going to Iceland. But before we get into Iceland, I want to say I'm happy and thankful I made it back to the States safely. Africa was my most recent destination, and it was amazing. The motherland, the people of the motherland embraced me, upholded me, welcomed me, and it felt so good to actually go there. And this was my first solo trip, so I did some real shopping out there. It was a lot of mixed feelings, but it was something that happened on its own. Africa wasn't supposed to be a solo trip. I was going to be accompanied several people, but for whatever reason, it ended up being a solo trip, and this is a first for me. So I definitely basked in all of it. There were some familiar aspects to solo traveling. There was some not so familiar aspects. I had to kind of learn fast. That way I could enjoy myself and everything like that. It was an amazing experience, and could I do it again? Yeah. I took a solo trip, my first solo trip to Africa. I think that's wild. The whole continent, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 miles away from home. That was a huge leap for me. So I'm excited about that. Who knows? You might see Africa in book 2. So make believe I'm everywhere. Book 1. Get your copy if you haven't already. So let's get into Iceland. Iceland begins on page 78. And by the way, I hope you're having a great start to your week as always. Staying positive, looking forward to greatness, looking forward to a better day ahead, a better afternoon, a better evening, a better transition into the night. I just hope, you're staying positive as always, right? So page 78, here's when my visions visualize. So Iceland, like this chapter, was a very fun and eventful, magical experience. What motivated me to want to go to Iceland was the Northern Lights. I've always been a fan of planets and a whole nerd for science, chemistry, and stuff like that. And the Northern Lights was definitely something that I've always heard about, never truly understood. So I took some time to research it, and I even did a video here on my YouTube, right? So I don't know if you're watching this on Instagram or whatever, you go to YouTube. Iceland was my opportunity to see it firsthand, and it was beautiful. It was amazing. It was a little tricky to find, but you do your research, you download the right apps. They have locator apps. You download the right apps, and it works out. But Iceland was filled with wonder. It was so me. It was so quiet there. It was snowy. It was cold. I'm a winter baby. I was born in December, so it was just Iceland was right up my alley. I like chill. I like cold. I like quiet. I love those things. You know what I mean? So Iceland, I would definitely see Iceland as home. That could be home. The weather is probably going to be a little annoying after a while, probably, having to wear a coat everywhere you go and stuff like that. But it just feels so cozy there and slow and quiet. Even in the most busiest parts, there's still a low-key, quiet tone to it. So it was so fun. It was so fun. It was so enjoyable. And talking about Iceland being a part of the greater Scandinavia, I also visited with the intentions to see the Northern Lights, among other things, Sweden, Copenhagen, and Norway. So I photographed the Northern Lights in all of Scandinavia, and I think with the exception of Finland. But Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Iceland, those were places that I have visited, and I was able to witness the Northern Lights on several occasions. So again, book 2. Book 2 will be in the works very soon, and I'm just excited for what is to come, and I'm also thankful and happy for those of you who have supported book 1 and just the web series. As we are approaching the end of this web series, this is episode 9, and there's one more after this one. How could I not do a book 2? How could I not put these experiences in chronological order. Book one, my early days of travel. Still figuring things out. But with book one, you're able to see like the growth, how I've grown. As a traveler, as an artist, as a entrepreneur, as a businessman, as a lover, as a appreciator of life and nature. You know what I mean? All that good stuff. So I'm excited. That's going to be in the works very soon. You'll see Africa in there. You'll see Norway in there. You'll see Sweden in there. You'll see Denmark in there, and wherever else I decide to venture to. You know what I mean? So definitely go check out Iceland if you haven't already. I went like during the middle. I think it was like the middle of the winter equinox, so it was freezing there. Blizzards every other night. I actually wore 2 socks in like my winter boots, and it still wasn't enough. Like it was, like frigid cold. Granted, I'm out there photographing and everything like that, but it was amazing. What was it, Blue Lagoon? I think I went to Blue Lagoon, or no, I think I went to Sky Lagoon, because Blue Lagoon, the popular one, that one was shut down because the volcano was erupting. Like, I forget the name of it, but it's like near Grindavik. But that whole street was like closed off because as I touched down in Iceland, the volcano was going off, and then it ruined, I guess, the roads and everything like that. So we couldn't go to the Blue Lagoon because it's near the eruption site. So we ended up doing Sky Lagoon, and it was awesome. I didn't think I'd be like in my shorts in the freaking wintertime in a pool, but it's a geothermal heated pool, so it felt, it was a totally different type of ball game. Like, definitely check it out. Most people, I don't feel, are gonna travel to Iceland in the wintertime unless you just don't mind the cold, but it was a perfect time to travel. It wasn't that much people. It was cold, like you got to see all the ice, you got to see all the icicles and everything like that. Like, it was just awesome and just snowy and wintry. Like, it was awesome. It was cool. I mean, it really gave Iceland, So what more is there in Iceland for me to discover? Just do a little bit more digging, a little bit more research, and who knows, something might wow me and I might book the flight. Hey, again, my first solo trip went to Africa. Iceland is 5 hours. Africa is 14 hours. Like, where I went, it was 14 hours, and then it was still another 3 hours to fly down to South Africa. So Iceland being 5 hours, that's light. You could get that done in a day and still have fun. I look forward to you coming back. I want to thank you for tuning in. Make Believe I'm Everywhere, the web series. This is episode 9. My visions visualized. This is something that I've always dreamed about, something I've always desired about, to see the Northern Lights, to see the Arctic, I was a Planet Blue kid, like an avid Planet Blue watcher, when they would show the whales and the different narwhals and, the seals and stuff like that, play on the ice sheets, glaciers and all that type of stuff. So Iceland was definitely one of those trips I've always visioned on going, not just for the Northern Lights, but for the wildlife and just the scenery, and it did not disappoint, but I'm pretty sure it gets better. So till next time, take care. Make Believe I'm Everywhere, the web series. This is episode 9. I'm out of here.